cut class so much. Maybe I should have been studying instead of out screwing around with my friends. This is it. The real world. What am I going to do? What am I going to do now? So said the voice in my 18-year-old head as I sat there on a stone wall out in front of my parents' house. I had just graduated from Johnston High School. To give you a little background, a Johnston High degree is equal to about an 8th grade education. And even at that, I didn't apply myself. See, my dad is an Italian immigrant, and he really didn't value education. In fact, I can remember when I was about 5 or 6 years old, my dad came to me and said, "Hey, my Anthony, how many years did you have to go to school in this country before you can get out and work?" I'm not sure, Daddy. I think it's 12, but I'll ask my teacher tomorrow. So there I was, sitting on that wall, asking myself, what am I going to do now? Have you ever asked yourself that question? Have you found yourself in a circumstance and thought, what do I do now? So I knew what I didn't have. I wasn't going to be the next Dan Marino. And unfortunately, this singing voice wasn't going to get me on American Idol. I remember the story that my dad had told me a few years earlier. My dad grew up in Italy. And during World War II, his town was bombed and then invaded by the Nazis. And him and his family had to escape into the mountains just to survive. And they had to get out fast with just the clothes on their back. And I remember him telling me, "Anthony, we could all look at what we don't have. But when you find yourself in those situations, you need to focus on what you have and use what you've got." So what did I have? I obviously wasn't going to go on to college, but I had a desire to make something of my life and to become successful. So I started my own construction company. I literally started with a wheelbarrow and a pickup truck. And I worked, and I worked, and I worked. One day, one of my suppliers referred me to a project in Groton, Connecticut. But this was a 4-story Super 8 motel. I had never built anything of this size. So I drove to Groton. I met with the owner. I submitted a bid. And 2 weeks later, I'm driving home with a contract in my hand. Yes! 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 About halfway. And then I realized I have no crew. I have no equipment. And I've never built anything like this. So I'm back to those same questions. What am I going to focus on? And how am I going to use it to build this hotel? I hired a crew, I bought equipment, and I completed that project. And it was a successful project. Over the next several years, I went on to complete many more projects. And by the age of 30, I had accomplished many of my financial goals. In fact, by the age of 30, I had become a self-made millionaire. By 35, life was great. I was married, I had a beautiful home on 5 acres, and I had 2 amazing daughters, Ashley and Emily. And one day, my wife comes to me and says, "Anthony, I'm not happy, and I want a divorce." I looked at her and said, "But you've never been happy. What's that have to do with our marriage?" Over the next 2 years, I watched everything that I had spent a lifetime building evaporate. I found myself alone in my apartment, down on one knee. If I gotta be really honest, it was more like the fetal position. What do I do now? I'm not 18 anymore. My house is gone. My business is gone. My family's gone. What do I do now? Now, we've all heard of the power of positive thinking, and I'd love to tell you that I thought positive thoughts, and I meditated. And everything was all better. Yeah, I'd love to tell you that. It's really not that simple. But it was at that moment that my dad's words echoed in my mind. Focus on what you have and use what you've got. So I sat down at my kitchen table, and it was hard because there was a lot of pain and a lot of loss, and that would have been really easy to focus on that. What do I have? How can I use it to rebuild my life? I sat down and I literally started writing a gratitude list. What am I grateful for? I have my health. I have my daughters. I have my whole future ahead of me. I have possibilities in my life that exist now that I didn't have before. And the more I focused on what I was grateful for, the more I focused on what I had and how I could use it, the more I became more empowered and directed myself to creating my new life. So I ask you, the next time you're down on one knee, or worse, what will you focus on, and how will you use what you've got? Mr. Toastmaster.